Good morning, everyone. All right. Hopefully you're having fun so far, and I know this is actually, I love the speakers, and I think that the content they bring in, it's pretty interactive. And that's the heart and soul of this conference. But it's a pleasure and a privilege to be kind of invited for this to this conference. And I'm just kind of curious, how many were you here yesterday? Oh, good. Okay, good number. I think we have some new faces as well. If you recap, we had a great session yesterday, sharing a couple of patients, their journeys, and then we're going to have one more today, as I promised. Having said that, let's begin with a simple question that I was actually going to asking everybody. That think of yourself, maybe yourself or your family members. I'm just curious if anyone here in this room or in your family combating or fighting any chronic medical problem, like obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, cancer, kidney failure, fatty liver, so forth. Good. Right. So that's not a surprise because this is where we live. 6 in 10 Americans have at least one chronic disease, that is 60%, more than half. And then 4 in 10 Americans, that is nearly half of us, have at least 2 or more chronic medical problems. It's not that we didn't have enough drugs, we didn't have enough experts or physicians or the science. We have all that, but despite, we're still in struggle. After 15 years of my practice, actually there's an epiphany moment in my practice. There's one day I had a patient, actually a family, who couldn't fit in any of the chairs or the furniture in our clinic. I said, like, man, okay, this is one of those, family combating, obesity. Mom, dad, and 3 kids, they're all crawling on the floor. Then I moved on to the next patient, and there was the same patient, 4th time in that month, in the wheelchair with a big soda up there, and the legs are big, doc, and my infection is back again. Well, didn't you just finish the antibiotics that I gave you? I just did, but it's back again. Well, that's a cellulitis. There was no choice but to send to the hospital because morbidly obese patient with a cellulitis or infection in the leg, 4th time in the past couple of months. And I was like, man, this is tough. And then the very next day, I had a patient, and we are almost like we operate like a mini ER. And this patient had a chest pain and all kinds of risk factors you can think of. I didn't want to take a chance because this is like a time bomb. I asked my nurses to send him to the ER because we have 3 standing by, ambulances. And they took more than an hour to transfer this patient to the ER. I was like, why? We have our own ambulances, and they should be, these patients should have been in the ER by now, and I'm kind of scared because I don't want him to get the heart attack. They said, like, doc, we called, but they left. And they had to call the 911 to get bariatric ambulance. I was like, what? I know we have bariatric chairs and bariatric beds, and now we are waiting for the bariatric ambulance? So that's what actually triggered me, and then because I was looking at myself in the mirror, I was sure enough turning myself into one of those patients, getting chubbier, my A1C was creeping up, my blood pressure going up. That's when I decided to make some little changes. And then after losing 40 pounds, I was surprised that almost all my numbers turned backwards. I was like, why can't I do it to my patients? Then I realized the challenge in a traditional practice. That's when we launched our clinic, a lifestyle medicine clinic called New Me Health. And sure enough, I can't be proud enough of our patients because they embraced the positive lifestyle change using our protocols and our monitoring systems and our coaching and everything, and they began to reverse their diseases. And we call them our New Me champions. It's a growing community of patients who are actually going against the grain. They're actually proving their physicians or specialists wrong that this disease, diabetes, obesity, blood pressure can be actually reversed, or in other words, at least toned down. And what we have done yesterday was we had I'm blessed with 3 of our patients who agreed to share their stories here on stage. So we had a privilege of having 2 of them. We had David shared his story where he was scared after being diagnosed with a cancer. And doctors were scared because his blood pressure was in 200 over 120, and he got to be on medication. He was like, what? Do I have an alternate way? So that's when he tried himself in a lot of dietary changes and finally joined our program. And we are proud to share that his blood pressure runs in 120s over 80s with 0 blood pressure medication. Think about it. And we had the second champion sharing his story, Nikhil, with his diabetes. After 15, 16 years of diabetes, We were able to see his A1C coming down from 12.5 down to 5.5. Extremely uncontrolled diabetes on multiple diabetic medications to technically pre-diabetic or non-diabetic with just barely half of his pill. 90% of the medications were actually reduced. And today, we have the pleasure to invite our third champion. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for our Jojo. Can we have Jojo and Mom? Jojo is one of our youngest patients in our program, and I believe this is a very pertinent discussion, as somebody was posing the question about, I think I'm type 1. Take a seat, Mama. Type 1 diabetic, and can I do anything about it? I think this is a pretty relevant the case that I think we can learn from. I know it's going to be a battle. It can be a never-ending battle or the struggle, but there are ways to actually improve the situation, and then I think we can hear some from that. And I appreciate Mom and then Jojo for taking your time. It's a Saturday. I think you should be chilling out with your little ones, right? Little brother, and then despite all this busy schedule and other commitments, they actually agreed to kind of share time with us today already. Why don't we begin with a little time? Maybe you can take us back, Mom. What was her health like? What was her health or diabetes like before finding Numi Health? If you can just paint a little picture, was it an easy ride? Was it a shock? Was it a surprise? What was it like before finding Numi Health?
About 2 years ago, going on 3, come July, she went into the hospital because what the doctors were saying was that she was delusional. She just kept throwing up. She couldn't hold nothing down. They were like, she's dehydrated. And then I get hit with, she is in diabetic ketoacidosis. I'm like asking them, what is that? I have no idea what that means. And all they kept saying is too much acid in the blood, too much acid in the blood. Then an endocrinologist walks in, and he tells me that my daughter's a type 1 diabetic. I was asking, how did this happen? How? How does it, what's the cause? What is going on? What's a type 1 diabetic? I heard of a type 2, but not a type 1. And they explained it the best they could. They gave us the insulin, and I asked the doctor, well, do I need to, be strict with her on her food? He said, no, she can have whatever she wants. Being a type 1 diabetic does not mean that she's restricted to food. She could still be a normal kid. Okay. We go home. We let her have basically everything that she wanted to have. Right? They were just dose her correctly. 3 months later, boom, we're back in the hospital because of DKA. They raised the insulin to higher. A month and a half later, again, back in the hospital, DKA. And it was like that for 2 years. 2 years, nonstop, always going back and forth into the hospital. And I was trying to figure out what is happening. I changed her pediatrician because her pediatrician previously was like, oh, it's normal. Her pain right here, that's normal. She's a diabetic. Why is she having pain all the time? Why is she always going into DKA? So I started shopping around, and I found me a pediatrician. Talked to him about her DKA, and he was like, hey, you know what? Take her to TDI. Maybe you'll be able to find some help there. Took her to TDI, and then October of 2024, we're back in the hospital for DKA. At this point, I didn't know what to do. I got home, my mother-in-law told me, hey, there's this doctor that I used to work for, Dr. Karapali. I just saw on Instagram that, he has built his own practice. I think he's a diabetic doctor, don't quote me. Give him a try. At this point, I was on the 50-50 defense side. Is he going to be another doctor that's just going to tell me she is a type 1 diabetic? Or is he going to be a doctor that is going to help me and fix what is going on with my kid?
Right, yeah. So that was actually, yeah, because I think that's pretty scary, right? And I'm just curious, is any type 1s in the room? I mean, if you don't feel comfortable, don't. I have to raise hand. But the type 1 or type 1, anyone on insulin, just answer yourself if you don't feel comfortable. DKA, does anyone know what DKA is? Diabetic ketoacidosis. So unfortunately, that's a household phrase for them. So she kind of comfortably just kind of, used it. Diabetic ketoacidosis. Technically speaking, that can be the worst form of diabetes, so the complex and acute issue you can think of. Technically, high sugars turning into acids and ketones and can put you in the coma. That's what she meant by delusional. She was alert and awake, but she was just, she wasn't know where she was. And I'm not sure how the sugars were. At the time of the diagnosis, what were the sugars?
My sugars.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
My sugars were really high all the time, and we would have to be through 30 to 25 units just to bring it down to the 100s. And when I go into the hospital, they'll put me on the IG drip, and my numbers will go down normally. And me and my mom would just look at each other like we don't know, how that happened.
Well, in other words, that's not a surprise, because that's the standard of care. That's what we do. That's what system is designed to do. But the challenging element was, I think, why is Mike going? Because, back to back, every few months to the hospital with this extreme form of, chaos, even though we are increasing the insulin, there got to be a different force. So I think, as you mentioned, Mom, that you found us through the family member, and what was it like, when you first, walked in? Because, that you scared me more than how you felt, because like as we were sharing yesterday, every single patient is a challenge because they try different things and they're finding an alternate way or a better way of dealing with that. So what was your feel like, when you all walked into a clinic? Did you feel like, okay, we found the place, or was it like, what was it like?
When we first walked in, I was like, he's not gonna help me because he's going to tell me I'm a type 1 diabetic and I have to take this medicine and this medicine and this medicine and put me on so many pills, like the other doctors try to put me on pills. And then after the first month, I was like, okay, maybe he can help me.
All right. Anything to add to that, Mom?
When I first walked in, it was very calming. Your office is very, very calming. And I was just hoping that, you can give me some encouragement to not give up, because that's where I was at. I was very close on giving up, because it's very tiring, and it takes a very strong person to be able to see their baby just lay there and not be able to do anything for them.
Sure, yeah. Well, yeah, I think that was a challenge for us too. I think I'm glad. I think you followed us, you trusted, because this is still an ongoing battle and the struggle. But down the road, I think we're a couple of months down the road. I don't know. I think you by this time, how many more DKs were you expecting? So you're supposed to, based on the frequency, I think you could be in twice or a couple of times already in the hospital. So how was this little time that we had in a few months? Did we see any hope, or did you start seeing any improvement in your sugars? How do you feel, Jojo? Maybe you can think of the sugars. How are the numbers in the past, and then how are they now? It still can be up and down, but what's your overall feel?
In the past, they were just high every week, every month, every year. For the 2 years, and then the 1 year that we joined you, I started seeing I'm dropping on myself. No insulin, no salads, no nothing, and no water. And then by the year or 6 months that we're trying, I see more green and red than orange and yellow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, somebody who, if you have no idea, what those, references for, that's on continuous glucose monitoring. So obviously, type 1s, almost every patient is on glucose monitoring in our clinic. When you say high, it's always going to be, high, 400, 500. You can't even see on the meter. That's what, the right was. And as, the numbers getting into the green zone, I think that's where the hope began. Alrighty, and then what do you see now? I think, I don't know if you can think of in terms of A1Cs before, or it's still a battle, but what are the days, how days are different when you look at the meters, and what kind of hope or actually possibility that you see now?
Well, from her since diagnosis, she was at 13%, with her
A1C 13.
with her sugars being at 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then, since starting your program back in November to today, we have noticed a huge difference. Her A1C, last I knew, was that she was at a 9.8, which is a huge difference. Being from just her meter reading high and seeing numbers now. Mm-hmm. We don't just see high anymore. Mm-hmm. We see numbers. Mm-hmm. I think the lowest that we saw was 105 in the morning. Before, it was just high. She always stayed high.
More than 400.
Yeah.
You just open your eyes in the morning, and then it's already kind of high. All right, it sounds good. That, yeah, 13 A1C down below, as low as we saw, 8.8. But was it with more insulin, or how was your pump? Because, unfortunately, how was your pump running out before and then now?
When I first started the pump, I would go through one pump a day. Mm. And I got tired of changing it every day, so I would dose myself less and less, but I would go high more. And then when we started your program, I would dose myself for 58 grams of carbs, and it would give me, with my numbers, and it would give me like 3.78 units, and it would go 3 days with the pump.
Right. So in other words, hundreds of units of the pump would just drain. Yes. In 24 hours, and still the sugars were off the chart. And then I think that's the confidence we had. I think we feel pleased that I think you're being helped as well. And now the pump lasts for days and days while the sugars are actually better. So and that's exactly what we want. I think this is not about talking one situation or one patient that what the program can do. But I think my point is there's a way. You just need to kind of sit down and have a better way of understanding the disease, how the body responds to the diet. And I always say, did we see 100% change in everything? No. I mean, I always said this is the cutest, my sweetheart, the youngest patients in our program, and she's in a growing age, so we don't need to kind of stress on every dimension. The little 10-degree shift or improvement we made, this is the result we're seeing. And then I think I'm hoping that she's going to learn more and more about her own body and how, because the diet today, technically 90% of the food in the market is not set for human consumption, let alone kids. This is not even a conspiracy, not even a confusion. Our own invention and innovation, modernization of the food industry actually gave birth to all these, the troubles. So if we can go back to that, and it's going to be a journey to kind of get back to as much as possible. But any message out there, Mom or Jojo, for anybody who in the situation, if somebody was looking for, is there a hope for me? Can I, get better? What do you all want to say?
Go ahead and, give Dr. K a call. Honestly and truthfully, he was able to help me and JoJo to not have to worry about going back into the hospital, getting her insulin risen and changing her insulin, all of that has stopped. honestly and truthfully, because another thing that Dr. K forgot to mention was that at the beginning, showed us the numbers on her blood work, and she was also high cholesterol and fatty liver, along with being a type 1 diabetic. He helped her. He honestly and truthfully did help her to reverse, and along with the type 2, because she was a double whammy on top of that. He helped reverse the type 2. He helped reverse the cholesterol and the fatty liver. He honestly, with no medications.
Well, technically, that might actually sound like astounding change, but that's how the human body works. If you put in harmony, magically, all the instruments begin to play. All you need is a conductor. You have tons of instruments and the players. If you don't have a conductor and if there's no script, none of the instruments would actually play. You don't call them instruments. It's a chaos. That's exactly how the body is. We just need to go back to that, basic. And I want to close, without taking much of your time. I want to close with one of these, my favorite quotes, and I think I was sharing yesterday. It's up on the screen. Even though we're talking about the exercise and recovery, and then I'm proud that I think she's proud. She goes to martial arts, I think Muay Thai, right? And I was kind of scared. I send my kids to Taekwondo, but I think there's a lot of work in Muay Thai, so martial arts. So that's her strength training, and then there's so many things what we do. But when you go back to the diet, because the food can, you cannot undermine, forget about the value and the power of the food. Here we go. One of my favorite, Ayurvedic proverbs. When diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. As we heard yesterday, when the diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. But when the diet is correct, medicine is of no need. In other words, if you fix your diet and then goes beyond that lifestyle, you probably don't need a medication. But if you mess up your lifestyle, especially diet, which is, we are surrounded by these, toxic, the food around, if you neglect it, it doesn't matter how many medications you're using, I think it's going to be fine. And I just want to close the conversation by saying, always remember, your lifestyle is the best medicine. If you don't address those elements, eat more, sleep, and stress management, and so forth, you can't find the solution elsewhere, and then always choose health over everything else. I know we want everything, any possession, assets or education or anything, finance matter, but without health, we know that soul won't be happy, and always make it as your priority, and then always try to add more life to years than just years to life. So quality of life matters more than anything else. As I said yesterday, no one knows how long you're going to be on this planet, but as long as we are alive, we want to be functional, productive, and self-sufficient. And we are proud that we actually have teenagers and preteens all the way to 80s patients. They still want to make a difference. And then all I want to say is, it's never too late to change your lifestyle. It's never too early. So you can always have a better day. And I just want to close right there. And thank you very much. And thank you, Mom and then Jojo, for sharing your time. I hope that was helpful.